Hey everybody, welcome to the Going Analog podcast, the show where board game industry guests bring their topics and games to discuss. I'm Christina, your host, and if you've listened to some of our previous podcasts, you may notice that I love a pretty nature game. So, with the Kickstarter for the new game Everbloom wrapping up, we wanted to invite the designer Ian Moss to Going Analog. Hi Ian.
Hi, how's it going?
Welcome back. You were here you forgot, but I totally remembered. You were here.
Man. I didn't know you were going to. I was like, I hope she doesn't bring this up because totally. I'm like, I think this is Ian's first episode. She's like, I don't think so. And we had to look back. It was a long time ago.
It was. We're on episode 100 something now. It was
134.
134, and this was episode 51. So you were on with John Gilmore, and we had a great time. But now you have a new game coming out, and because in the past, you've done a lot of co-designs with John Gilmore, of course. So, we've got Wonderland's War, Dinosaur Island, and Dinosaur Island, some of our favorite games, a fun News at 11. And now you're the designer at Nerdvana Games and the lead designer in Bunkers and Badasses, the Borderlands tabletop RPG, which sounds super fun because we love Borderlands, love. And you get to make your own Vault Hunter and everything. So welcome back. I hope you remember it was a good time, I guess, back on episode 51.
Yeah, I think I remember. I think the topic that I picked that time was about RPG mechanics or like board game mechanics and RPGs, because I think Bunkers and Badasses had just been announced.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is timely.
And now I think Everbloom is the first tabletop game from Nerdvana. Is that right?
Yep, yeah, they had done a small box game that was just like straight to retail with another publisher. It was the Tiny Tina's Robot Tea Party. This is our first of our own IPs.
Oh, that's exciting! And so we did get to play that on the
Tabletop
Simulator. And we'll definitely be talking about that because our topic for today is going to be nature games, because I love talking about nature games. Yeah. And of course with me is Shu. He's going to be discussing that with us also.
Hello.
Mm-hmm. And for you, Ian, what's the topic you would like to talk about today?
So the topic I picked was big boxes and like deluxe editions. Do you like them? Do you get them? Do you pass them by?
You're talking to the right people. So
I can't wait for this topic.
But we start off this episode by talking about some games that we just wanted to highlight. So what is our game for today?
We're going to talk about Eclipse Second Dawn for the
Galaxy.
Wait, for the Galaxy or of the Galaxy? Second Dawn.
For the Galaxy.
Or of one of those. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so it's the second edition of the classic 4X space game we played recently. So, yeah. Wait, do you want us to jump into it now?
Yeah, we're talking about it now.
Okay. So, Eclipse. This is an epic 4X space game. As epic as it gets, short of another game, Twilight Imperium, that we've talked a lot about. Have you played this one, Ian?
Yes, I played the original version at one of the John Gilmore game days, but I don't remember enough of it to like fully say that my brain's not going to meld it with the other big one. You know what I mean? Like those. I'm not going to forget parts of the experience and pretend that it was the other parts of the other experience, and those are going to meld together in my brain because it's been so long.
I always misremember the factions. I keep saying like Eclipse factions are the names of the Twilight Imperium factions, and I get
similar setup. Like there's giant factions kind of vying for control of the galaxy. They're all fighting each other, and then there's a map made up of a bunch of hexagonal tiles. You have to go out and explore to kind of conquer more territory. You can research technology. But the thing that kind of maybe sets Eclipse apart from a lot of the other games is like everyone has blueprints for their four types of ships. There's like fighter ships, cruisers, dreadnoughts, and then a starbase, which isn't a ship, but it's like a floating fortress that protects systems. And then you can research technology and buy parts to outfit them. So for example, if I put on a plasma cannon onto my cruisers, all of my cruisers have it. If I put on Gauss shields, I'm not even sure if I'm saying these things right, but
that's the thing.
it would go on. You would decide what ships you want to put these on. So you start to customize all your ships. Like, do you want them to have better targeting, so better hit rates? Do you want them to do more damage if you do hit? Do you want better defense to screw up other people's targeting? You want missiles that will fire first? Do you want heavy hulls? But you can only add so much, right? You have
to power it, and there's only so much space. But as you can tell, that part is the most exciting part for Shoot.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So it's just so cool to be able to customize ships, and then everyone's like, when you're about to fight, you're approaching, and then people are kind of looking over at the other players' player boards to see. They're like, oh man, there's a lot of missiles on that thing. I got to be careful. Or you could go into a fight confident because you're like, oh, they don't have any targeting at all. So really epic game to take hours. And the reason we brought it up, even the second edition, Second Dawn, is now a little bit of an older game, at least 2-3 years old. But we played it recently because our friend James Hudson of Druid City Games, so he's our neighbor. He lives down the street. And then his family's moving back to Alabama. So we've had a series of going away game parties for him. And one of his requests was to play Eclipse one last time. And then we had enough interest from our gaming group to have 2 full tables.
Players.
6 players at one table, 6 players at another table. We put them all set up downstairs, so we had them next to each other. And then, but James had a seat at each table. So he would like take turns one side, run to the other table, take turns. And then he never... This guy plays games very loosey-goosey. He's like, doesn't get bogged down in analysis paralysis, so he's not over-strategizing.
Ideal for this weird situation.
Yeah, he'll go in and just does whatever feels good, whatever sounds good at the time, without overthinking it. And he won one table handedly.
Not handily. It was close.
No, not like our table.
I mean, well, it was so close.
No, he kicked everyone's asses at Christina's table, and in my table, he lost badly. He like last place with a lot. Everyone else was like pretty top 4 were really close within a point of each other. So, but it's just a really fun. If you're looking just for a really epic space themed game, I like this one better than Twilight Imperium because you can play it in a third to half the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a little bit more Euro-y of a game versus Twilight. I think the appeal for Twilight is it's like a whole day situation with a lot of negotiating with the politics and stuff. So you lose that aspect with Eclipse, but you have a lot more of the strategizing and like planning your turns, which building up that armada basically. So we also had a bunch of new factions we were trying out from the expansion.
Oh, that's right.
So that was interesting. Is like I'd never played my faction at all. James on the table that he won was playing a brand new faction that's obviously OP, you know. So that's pretty fun. So it was really fun to like explore these new factions that had different abilities and stuff like that. So good times. We had a great time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what is your game, Ian?
So the game that I was recently obsessed with is Canvas, which was on Kickstarter in 2020, 2021. They've had a couple of expansions since then. But it is an art game. Like, it's an art piece in addition to being just a fun game. Like, the game is good. And then also they kind of leaned into the theming of the game with the packaging, because it just has a little notch on the back where you can just hang it up, and there's no if you take it out, I think you can get it. It normally has a sleeve with it, but you don't have the sleeve on it, and you can just hang it up, and it just looks like a canvas painting on your wall.
So smart.
Yeah.
Have you done this? Have you hung up your canvas boxes?
No, I want to, which I think I'm going to do once the newest thing for Canvas arrives. But no, I just have the 3. They're on a shelf. It is cool that they had the 3 have like a combining art also. So if you have both Canvas and then the 2 expansions, you can hang them up side by side, and it's kind of got like a continuing art through all 3, which is fun. Which I enjoy that a lot as a person with limited shelf space. Let's say
it serves that dual purpose of looking good too.
Yeah. The other thing I like about Canvas, is a mechanic which I don't know if it has a name. I was going to bring this question to you because I don't know the answer to this because I couldn't find out in my limited research that I have done. But it has a market mechanic where you can either take the very first thing in the market of, in this case, these are the cards that you're going to be combining to make your 3 different art pieces in the game. Or you can pay one of your inspiration tokens, which just look like little palettes with color on them, with swaths of paint on them. You can put that on the card to skip it and go for something further down. And I don't know what that mechanic is called. It shows up in more games than I think of any other mechanic that I've seen that I don't know the name of. Right?
Maybe we should just invent one. I'm sure there's a name. But I have no idea what it would be.
This is your opportunity, Ian,
yes, you should
own
claim
this.
it.
Oh.
Trademark it, piss everybody else off when you send them cease and desist letters,
Yeah.
Ian's Market.
Pay to pass? Pay to pass. I'm gonna call that.
Yeah, because then the person, if you take something that has that, whatever that token is, whatever in whatever game, you get all of those tokens. So now you have more opportunity to pass on future ones. Where if you spend all of your tokens, you don't have that opportunity. You just kind of have to take what the game is giving you, or what is there in the front on your next turn. Which I always like the mechanic because it's kind of push your luck. You are deciding when to spend a limited resource versus when to save it or gain more of it, and. Yeah, I was like, man, this just shows up in so many games, and I just don't think there's a name for it. If there is, someone will immediately, your comments will just say, someone will just immediately pop them. I was like, well, that's actually
let
called.
us know. Please let us know.
I need to know. If it's not, I need to put it in a game and trademark it. Just be this is this mechanic from now
on. It's just such a pretty game and the rule set is so easy that it's so easy to bring new players into the hobby with it too, where you're I love the little touch where when you're done making a painting, when you've slotted in all the different pieces to try to get scoring icons, but you've also made a painting with a unique name, and then you sort of show it off to everybody, and it's there's a little easel, right? Yeah. So put it out onto it's so cute. Everything is super cute on that. I love the whole packaging and there are ways with the expansions to make them a little bit more complex for people who want more decisions and stuff too. So,
Ian, you should explain to our audience the probably the most important thing about Canvas, I think, is the format of these cards and the sleeves. I don't think we mentioned that, right?
No.
Right. So the cards that you're using to make this painting, you have your background of your painting already created. This is there for you. It's a wonderful panorama already, but then you need to put stuff in the foreground. So when you're grabbing these cards from this pay to skip TM market, each of these cards is actually transparent. So it has the art laid over top of what is a clear background, and you are combining 3 of these cards to make each one of your paintings. You can get more cards than that. You can have up to 5 before you're forced to create a painting. But once you have 5, then you take 3 of them, combine them, and they have art at the top, which is really cool. And you're combining all these things in these different layers. And then obviously you can also get your unique name from it. And then at the bottom is where the scoring happens, where kind of the game is, unless the game is just trying to create the best name possible, which sometimes I just do that. But really, the bottom is where you'll have these color icons where each game you have a different set of these objectives that each of your paintings is going to try to complete. And however you best complete each one of those objectives every time you complete a painting is the ribbons that you get, and then you score based on how many ribbons you have at the end of the game in these various colors. So yeah, but the transparent cards, it created an instant back for me. I love games with transparent cards. I feel like I hopefully will have one in the future, a game with transparent cards in them, because I think they're cool. I like their utility, and I like the way that they can kind of mess with the play space in different ways. Even if you're not sleeving them into, even in a lot of games, you just sleeve them into a card and it's kind of just creating these other things. But if all the cards are transparent, then you don't ever have to splay them out in a specific way. You can kind of splay them out in a way that works for you, which I think is a a fun play space that maybe is explored, hopefully is explored in the future with transparent cards.
Yeah, we haven't even opened our most recent expansion of Canvas.
Yeah, what the third or the second expansion we have not opened yet. Yeah.
So that's on
But
our shelf.
part of it is we'll get to it when we talk about Ian's topic.
Oh
later.
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, everybody.
I played. Those we were saying it was great to introduce people. We have some friends of ours who are newer to gaming, like they played some games, but I was like, oh, we should play Canvas, and then so we played Canvas, and then we played Canvas with the first expansion, and then we played Canvas with the second expansion. So we just like played 3 games in a row, each time adding a little bit more complexity that the expansions bring. It was great.
Cool. We'll have to do a progressive like that sometime too. But we'll go into our first topic, and that is what, Shu?
Nature games.
Yes.
So, I think it's been a couple weeks ago, or a month ago maybe, Ian invited us to play Everbloom on TTS, Tabletop Simulator. So, just to kind of, in case you're not familiar, this is just a format for you to play board games. It's like it creates a physical 3D kind of representation of the games. So we got to play the game with you. You taught it to us and our friend Derek Funkhauser from Board Game Spotlight. And then, so I want to give you a chance real quick, Ian, to kind of tell people more about Everbloom. But when this podcast comes out, we're just squeezing this in at the last second. Where it should be another 24 to 48 hours left when this podcast first comes out.
So you'll still have a chance, listeners.
Right.
If you're listening to this as soon as we publish it, you'll have a chance to back it. So if this sounds exciting to you, go check that out on Kickstarter. But Ian, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Everbloom, and then we'll get into the topic.
Yeah. So Everbloom is an area control strategy game that has features of like bidding and a little bit of set collection in this world of flora meets fauna. So the theme of Everbloom, which is kind of how play into the nature theme topic, is that there are these creatures that are hybrids of plant and animal, and they become these mixtures of the cover features a lion with this like beautiful large leafy green mane with flowers over top. And these creatures are going around and kind of terraforming the world around them to help bring back plant life to this world where it started to die off. And this cycle is known as the Everbloom because it happens every age, right? It's kind of kicks off the age of the Everbloom. And so these animals come in, but they terraform naturally and without recognition of what they're doing. So the players in the game are playing these factions of like real world pollinators that bees, bats, butterflies, hummingbirds, lizards, lemurs, all these ones that go out and pollinate in their day-to-day life. They are tasked with venturing out to the wilderness and bringing these hybrids back to their own habitats so that they can help their home sort of rejuvenate back to its like original glory. But yeah, so that's the theme. And
the art is really, really eye-catching on this game. What we only did on TTS, of course. But it was like a really beautiful game where like I'll have questions about like some of the things that you decided on later, but I had a really good time because I won, but I had a really good time with this game because even though like if you initially say area control to me, I'm like not really like my thing, but there's like so much more comboing going on in this game that I really, really enjoyed. So what was your overall feel for it, Shu?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So when you first reached out to us, Ian, to play this game, and he said it's going to be over TTS, I'm like, I really don't like playing games on TTS. I feel like there's a time and energy tax of playing if you have played it physically in person and you could just reach across and grab things versus trying to do it with the mouse and orient things correctly and move things to the right place, or try to show people where to look on this board because you could scroll around to different places and zoom in to different places. There's just like a amount of extra time and energy needed. and so I generally try to avoid it. But I'm like, well, this is the only way we're going to check this game out. It's about to hit Kickstarter, and then I was very curious because we enjoy your designs. So I'm like, all right, we'll give it a try. And then one of the things I really liked was when the game was over, it felt right, and it didn't even with
the
that
length of it was like
the length was perfect. It's like okay, it's not too long, not too short. Even with this TTS tax, quote unquote tax that I'm complaining about, it didn't feel like it's like oh that was a drag to play. And then so that was my first thought. I was like, man, this is a great length for what we just did. Like there's strategy there. It felt fulfilling, and it didn't overstay its welcome. And then the other thing I thought, there's just like all these little touches here and there. Whereas we were playing, you're like, it was like something like the last player. I can't remember how this worked.
Oh, the first player. The first player chip. Yeah. So in the game, a lot of time during the development, we originally had 4 rounds, and we did kind of in development in these later stages, we did kind of feel like it was kind of overstaying its welcome. I had originally, said like the rounds are seasons, so it was very thematic to have 4. But you don't stick with that just for thematic reasons. Like if the game wants to be 3 rounds, it should be 3 rounds. And with 3 rounds, you have enough time to do a lot of the things that you want to do, but not everything that you want to do. Like your habitat at the end of the game, you're going to be like, if I only had 1 or 2 more cards, this would be perfect. And that's where a lot of games kind of get you to. Which is to this point where you're like, next time, I'm gonna perfect this. This is gonna be the best version. My habitat is gonna flourish like no one's business. And so so that was kind of a thing in development where we had this turn order structure of going down to 3 rounds. You also have it in different player counts. Some players will be first multiple times. Some players won't end up being first player. But in general, being first player was not good because in the flow of the game, you're placing out these chips. Because I had just come off of Wonderland's War and still had chips on the brain. So you have these faction chips that you're placing out that have these values of that's the number of pollinators that you're able to disperse and to send out to try and recruit these hybrid creatures in this wilderness board setup. But that also means if you're the first player, you're the first person to place your very last chip. And then you have, in a 4-player game, up to 3 other people who then get to go after you and see what you've done. Yeah, and be like, I'm going to take this from you specifically. So originally the mechanic was to just have a token that the first player had that would flip, and then they could just add an extra pollinator to one of theirs. Just giving them an extra. And that worked for a long time, but again, it still didn't fix the core problem, which was you stop touching the board first. And then even with that extra pollinator, you can just get things taken away from you. And so shifting that first player bonus to this first player chip, what that does is everyone plays all 4 of their chips. First player plays their, they have a value 1, 2, 3, 4. They play all of those, and then second player, as you go through, everyone has now played all 4 of their chips. Once everyone's played all their chips, the first player chip can go out. The first player gets one more touch on the board, and it's just a single 1-value chip. So you can send it out to the wilderness as you would normally, and you have 1 pollinator that you can send to a card. And just with that little bonus, they have so much more agency in the game, because now as the other players, that there is still a danger that if you don't outbid me by 2 on something, I could come back and tie it or take it back immediately. So it just added that little line of extra tension and that little bit more of uncertainty to a game that once everyone started placing their chips, you can kind of start to see what everyone wants, and that can kind of be your downfall if someone can see what you're going for really hard and they have the ability to stop you.
Yeah, it's such a. I remember at the time when I saw it, it's such a little thing, and it's not something you'd put on the back of the box or something you would immediately here's what this game's about. It's not something you'd really mention, but it makes such a huge difference in how it flows and how it feels. And then there's other examples of this, so it's just everything just kind of comes together really well. So
yeah, all the little details are great. Like everybody, your different pollinator factions have a slightly asymmetrical power, which is great. Depending on where you put your chips, which region, there are different sort of bonuses or things that are penalties potentially, and that's randomized. And different majorities, you'll get some other bonuses. So like everything feels good as long as you win something. I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really liked the flow, and it was very unique because even after the bidding, there's like you take, if you win this card, you get to take it into your habitat, but then you still have to actually bring the pollinators back for the ones that you didn't win the auction for. So there are times where you don't want to win an auction, and so there's a lot of interesting decisions to be made that aren't too overwhelming at the same time. So it's a really nice medium weight game for me.
So, and one thing I appreciate, and I'll use this as a segue to the actual topic because we do need to get to that, is that you didn't just go with a traditional, just realistic nature thing. You created your own world. Because now going to our topic, nature games, it's kind of a tired genre for me.
No, it's not.
Yes, for me, it is. For me. You can't tell me. It's not for
Why
me.
do you hate nature so much? Okay.
It's just there's been so many in recent years. And a lot of it's like either whether it's like animal themed or plant themed. Like a lot of games are about like, okay, clump these things together, or this thing will score better if these things are next to these things. Like it's like that's always the case. So I was getting tired of even good game. Like I'll acknowledge that Cascadia is a legitimate good game, and it's a great game to introduce to new people who aren't necessarily hardcore gamers. But I was just like, man, I feel like I've played a lot of games like this, and so I'm a little bit tired of the nature genre as a whole, with one big exception to everything I just said, which is Forest Shuffle. That game, have you played Forest Shuffle?
Yes, yeah, I played it on what is that, Board Game Arena when it showed up on there. I'd been wanting to try it, and then they got it, so I was like, my boss at Nerdvana Games, Nolan, and I played it on Board Game Arena. And again, Board Game Arena is like TTS, but it takes all of the hassle out. If you don't know,
Or scripted,
it's a tabletop simulator, but you don't have to worry about cameras or moving pieces around. Everything is fully scripted, so it does it automatically. Yeah, you can't cheat.
Even accidentally.
So playing it on Board Game Arena was great because it was nice and fast. It kind of calculated all of the kind of weird math that you can get into in that game. I still haven't played the physical version, and I fear the physical version because I know what addition that I'm going to have to do at the end of that to score.
It's not too bad. It's just like, you go through and score this and that. But the basic idea of this game, for people who are not familiar, you plant trees, and in each tree, you can have a card above it, card below it. So every card besides the tree cards are either split in half lengthwise or widthwise, like horizontally or vertically. So you have to decide when you're planting cards to use the upper half to go on top of a tree, the lower half to go below a tree card, right side, left side, things like that. And then there's all these crazy combos of like, I want to collect a diverse set of butterflies, or I want predators to be hunting prey in my forest, or I just want to go all trees and not worry about too much, or do a lot of plants. So I just like that system a bit more. It's a slightly more complex than a lot of other nature games out there, but I like that one.
One of my favorites. So I love a good multi-use card game, which Forest Shuffle totally is. And yeah, we've played that a lot recently.
Yeah. I played the physical edition. I played on Board Game Arena all the time. So that one is great. Yeah. How about you, Ian? Do you have any big nature games that you're a big fan of?
Yeah, I think I was kind of in a similar vein to you, where nature themes there's a lot of them. There's been a wave recently.
Ian agrees with
there's a lot of space games.
Yeah, for a person who's made a game in the nature theme space now with Everbloom, we internally we're very happy that we kind of went, I don't want to say the extra mile. Not that any of these other themes, nature themes, are lazy. They have, like Forest Shuffle, that theme works perfectly. I don't think you need anything else for Forest Shuffle besides that theme. I think all of the cards in that, they feel very thematic. But in ours, we went that extra level to kind of give it this sort of, I don't know, it's like Studio Ghibli, like otherworldly, magical vibe.
Very
On
unique,
top of
like
just the
your own
nature.
vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. To kind of live in its own space, to kind of avoid nature comparisons to a lot of other games. Because that's a lot of times what these nature games have to do is they have to kind of fight with the other titans of the nature theme. Or like with space games, you're talking about like Eclipse, like it has to fight with the other titans of the space genre, even the space 4X genre, you know?
I had a question, like, where did the name Everbloom come from? Because there's so many, like you said, there's so many nature games out there. Now, like blossom and flowers and stuff like that. Like, where did Everbloom come from?
So internally, it had gone through a lot of theme changes, which I had written a design diary. That was what the very first design diary for this game on the BGG page is about. Is this game is technically 10 years old and has gone through 5 different themes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But a lot of things that change between these different versions. Like the only thing that from the first theme that kept to the second theme was the theme itself. Like none of the mechanics stayed. It just was a very different game with the same theme I had on this other one. But then as it continued, it originally went to a flower theme in which we were just going to be, it was just called Pollinators at the time.
Okay.
Which is where we introduced the factions. You are pollinating factions, and you're going out, and now you're just pollinating cards. But then the systems of the game didn't really click as well. Like it didn't really make sense for like that cycle that you go through to make sense to just get flowers and add them to your habitat, because that's not how nature works. You don't like, I'm just gonna pick up this lily over here and carry this with me. So we wanted something that was a little bit more unique to the way that the game functions, where we found the theme of like the animal hybrids with the things, and now you're recruiting, like you're guiding them to your habitat, which then makes a lot more sense that the cards are coming with you.
So Plantimals was never an option for the name.
No. But we had like variations on hybrids or pollinating pollinators, but now they're habitats something. But then in this last like couple of years, you'll see that there's a game called Pollinators, there's a game called Habitats there. Because the nature theme is having this kind of second or third wave now, a lot of these names that I'm glad we didn't go with, because someone else already had them, right? And in their development,
putting those together gives it that like sort of otherworldly vibe that I think you're going for too.
Yeah, and it was kind of to build within that like that cycle. So your pollinators go through a cycle. They venture out. They either recruit and guide these creatures back to their habitat, or they go to the groves in which they come back when they're able to pollinate your cards. And that cycle is also the cycle in the game of like every age this Everbloom happens. So it kind of goes away and it comes back, and it's forever. You're forever blooming this world, right? And so that's kind of where Everbloom came from, was just a distillation of the theme and the themes of the game. I guess that's...
Let's see. Other nature games then. What are some that come to your mind that you really like, or you still, want to play a lot, or were very...
So one that I play a lot, and this is a shout out to fellow Wonderland's War co-designer Tim Eisner. I love Canopy. Canopy is one of my favorite nature-themed games, and the mechanics of that game are so much fun. Just to take this mechanic that was originally from like Magic, a type of Magic the Gathering drafting. Like you would draft decks using this Winston draft, I think it was called, system in Magic the Gathering, and to kind of recontextualize it in the world of this, you're trying to get these trees growing. You're trying to basically create your own canopies with animals and shelter them from these forest fires and these diseases and stuff that the jungle is known for. And of course the art, Vincent Dutrait art, was beautiful. Fantastic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the year that came out was definitely, I think it was my game of the year in that weight class. So it was just, it's like so beautiful, so intuitive, and it's like a rainforest theme, which you don't see too much of the nature ones as a subgenre. So I love that game. What other things? She was talking about Cascadia, which we still actually played pretty recently too.
Yeah, we showed it to a couple of friends who don't get to play a lot of board. They love board games, but they just don't know what to play. We were visiting them, and we broke it out, and they both really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think another game that comes to mind for me would like just for different. There's so many ways that you could take the nature theme, right? I think that like for another.
I feel like you're just you're slipping in all these things to try to convince me.
Yeah.
You know? Like
See, Shuffle was great.
You have to appreciate nature games more.
You should. Arboretum for another small card game, really like actually sort of a mean scoring game where you're laying out trees and you're trying to like have them score, but you know there are ways to block other people from scoring theirs, and so it's like actually a highly competitive card game for such a pretty game. So.
Yeah, you're doing it looks like you're doing a very serene thing, but on the inside you're just screaming for 20 minutes.
And then on the super heavy side, you could say Dominant Species is a nature game. Right?
I guess technically. I'm more talking about more recent. Ian knows what I'm talking about. It's 2 against 1 here, but it's just a lot of like standard current, because Dominant Species is like it's prehistoric, right? If I remember, if I recall.
But there's some that were not prehistoric life too. They were like other reptiles and like other types of animal things. I don't remember. I only played it once and I was livid. I hated that game personally. It's just so competitive. Like it just hit this bad note with me. But other people love this game, and I can objectively see why it's a great heavy game. It's not for me.
Yeah. Like I'm looking at this list Christina has on her computer screen. Like there's like Earth, and then I remember Verdant and Floriferous. Like a lot of these games have very similar gameplay. Card placement. Sure. Yeah, you're like collecting certain types of cards to create these sets and stuff, but very similar. There are lots of these games.
Well, I'm going to call out some different ones.
Okay, call out another good one.
Like Evolution.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like Oceans better.
The Oceans is pretty like crazy, like swingy, which I love. But Evolution, the original game, you are developing your own species that have different characteristics, and you start developing this really interesting arms race with the other players because you have to feed your creatures, and sometimes you might just go and eat other people's people's creatures. But if you haven't set it up well enough, you might end up eating your own animals, and so that's hilarious when that happens.
Yeah, that one thematically I think is cool. I've told this story before, probably on the podcast, but we played a game where most of us were playing peacefully. We're playing. I think we were all creating herbivores, and then, so you're sort of customizing your animals to optimally eat and survive. But then one of our friends, Stephanie, decided. She's like, "I'm gonna go explore being a predator." And all of a sudden, at our table of like 5 players, there's one predator. And no one was ready for this, right? So she's just like free, like about eating everybody up, and then we're like, oh crap! So then we had to develop defenses, like climbing trees, or I think armored shell, or like a hard shell, things like that. So to me, I was like, that was so cool to have to kind of like, this is what evolution is, right? It's like people are developing different things, not people, animals.
I mean, yes and no, but yes. I mean, nature selects for those.
Yeah, nature selects. I know you're going to get to more technical definition of how evolution works, but in general, it's like these things start to become more prominent features because now we had a dangerous predator on the board, so that was really cool to see.
And then Oceans puts that into the oceans, but with like the crazy variety of marine animals. There's like, and then you can like, they add in all these like extra packs with these legendary creatures, which some would argue like, oh, that's no longer a nature theme, but it's just really fun. There's almost like crazy Kraken or like all these intense different cards with different characteristics. And that one was, I haven't played that in a while. Sort of makes me want to replay Oceans and Evolutions. I think they're coming up with their ultimate version. Was it called Nature? Where they're taking all of the lessons from Evolution and Oceans to try to put it into this like ultimate game of a similar theme. So I'm excited for that coming out too. One more thing I just want to mention, of course, Wingspan. Sort of like was
Right.
one of those huge games that's now classic that brought so many, I think, real life nature lovers, bird lovers into the gaming hobby and made some gamers into birders. So yeah,
She sounded like you said turn some people into burgers.
birders.
Yeah.
That's not a term. Birders.
Oh, I know.
Mhm.
It just sounded like you said
And burgers, sure. Well,
Turn
that's
people
weird.
into hamburgers.
Also, we want to talk about Ian's topic. So, what is your topic again, Ian?
Yeah, so this was kind of inspired by the game that I had chosen, which is Canvas, and my experience of playing it 3 times in a row, which was we had the base game, we took that out, we played that, and then we took out the first expansion, and then I read the rule book for the first expansion, and then kind of tried to figure out where it combines to the base expansion or to the base game, and combine those two things, and then we got the second expansion out. So now I have 3 rule books. I'm holding kind of all of them to figure out the differences, how to play with everything. And then we play, and then I have to figure out how to put everything back into these 3 separate boxes.
Yep.
Because it doesn't...
Because they're thin. They're thin
Yeah,
boxes.
because the downside of creating these art pieces is that they are these 3 individual boxes that don't really combine, and you kind of have to put everything back where it was in the expansions, in their boxes. And if you want to play again, you just have to take all 3 boxes back out and unload everything. And so recently they launched their Kickstarter for the Canvas Big Box, which at very first, I'm not even going to the Kickstarter, I was like, do I really need it? Like, this holds them and I can hang these on the wall, and it's kind of a good system as it is. And then I remember trying to play it and put it away, and I'm like, well, maybe there's some improvements that can be made here. So I looked at the Kickstarter, and it is a really good price for a big box. And it was one of those times where I went out of my way to buy the big box version or the deluxe expanded version of a game that I already owned, because I felt like it would enhance the experience of playing the game. And because it's going to hold all the components. It has its own little sleeve. I could then take the other boxes, just hang them on the wall, and never have to worry about getting them back down. They can just be art pieces. And then the best part is it comes with a single rule book that has all of it together, which I desperately needed.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, Ian. So we were chatting and getting ready for this episode, and you said that was your topic idea. And you're like, my game pick, I think, Canvas, my topic, Big Box. Literally earlier that day, maybe an hour or 2 before you sent that message, I was on the Canvas Big Box Kickstarter page. And then I went through the same thought process. I'm like, well, I don't know if we're going to hang it up because we don't have the wall space for it in our game room, the 3 original boxes. But I'm like, like all those boxes are really thin. They're not going to share anything. So you have to pack everything separately. I'm like, having it all in one box they could just pull from the shelf that had everything in it. I was like, perfect. I'm sold. I love the singular rule books. That combine everything into one sheet or one booklet. And I was like, so I backed it. And then like a couple hours later, you're like, I want to talk about these things. So it's like, perfect. I just went through this whole process.
What a devious master plan of Canvas designers. They were planning on this from the beginning, I bet.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I wish other big box solutions would give you the one rule book, because I think it's one of the first times I've seen that where unless it's like a deluxe edition of the game where it's basically you're rebuying the game that you probably already own, but in a deluxeified version. That's obviously going to come with a rule book that has everything. But any of the big boxes that I've gotten for the West Kingdom series, any of those Garfield games, North Sea series big box, any of those, they give you room for all the components, but you just bring your rule books with you. So if you're playing with old expansions, like in Raiders, you just kind of, or again, I'm holding 3 rule books and flipping through each to figure out which card is that from that expansion? Is that a promo? Do I have the promo rules? Where is that at?
Right. Yeah, I'd love it when they kind of rethink, okay, if you're going to put everything into a big box, how do you do it? So like Wingspan, for example, the aforementioned Wingspan, they give you dividers for all the different territories for the expansion. So this is like your Asia cards go here, your Europe cards go here, European cards go here. So they kind of figure out how you would want to organize it. And then the other side from the same company, from Stonemaier Games, they did create a single rule book, and they have a spiral bound one for people who just want it flat open. They have a hardbound one for people who hardcover for people who want more of a collectible look to it. And then that's really cool. One of my favorites is Cthulhu Wars. They also did a single rule book, and it's like also hardcover, hardbound, because there's a million expansions, a million little things, and so they keep updating this. They're on their fourth version now, and they all have different covers, different titles of the rule book because it covers everything up to that point, and so they update all the different pages and everything. It's a massive project, but yeah, I'm a sucker for this. I want one for Eclipse because now Eclipse I have like 4 different boxes. Even though the first box is massive, now I have 2 more that has expansions. Another box that has all these little extras. I have all these little pamphlets for these mini modules and expansions everywhere. It's just a loose mess, and I'm like, man, I would give anything for them to just give me one bigger box.
Anything? How much is it?
Anything. I would give up all our nature games in our collection to get the massive big box in one universal.
I haven't thought about the marital consequences of that.
Yeah. There's another recent one, Village Pillage, where they released a couple of expansions and now they have a big box and a unified rulebook. I'm like, I don't even care. I backed it with 2 more expansions, but I'm like, I actually don't care about the expansions. I'm just so excited to have a big box and unified rulebook.
Yeah, I think the Canvas big box comes with.
Oh
yeah, I'd say the Canvas big box comes with. I think there's like a couple new cards, and I'm like, sure, yeah, add them in. Like let's do it.
Yeah.
There was a new Millennium Blades Kickstarter, but their previous Kickstarter was like, here's the big box. Here you go. This will store all of your Millennium Blades stuff. And Millennium Blades is like my favorite game that I will only probably get to play once every 3 years or so, but I'll never get rid of it. But it had a couple of expansions, and the game features so many cards to begin with that this big box was about double the size of what the base game box was to fit all of the stuff. It doesn't fit on a shelf. It's just above. It's just on top of one of my shelves currently. But then they did another Kickstarter after that one, and it was just, here's some more cards. And I'm like, all right, yeah, just get some more cards. We'll throw them in the box. I'll look at them in 2 years when I finally get to play the game again.
Yeah, it's just, I think, it does come down to, in general, like how much we like the game where you're getting that offering. And sometimes we've differed a little bit. I think you really wanted the Suburbia Deluxe big box thing, and I was like, on that one. But then for me, if there's an added element of like nostalgia, like you said, I'm never going to get rid of this game. Like I still really have a really big soft spot in my heart for like Tokaido. So when Tokaido came out with its like designer edition, whatever, and I'm like, I have all of the expansions already. The game is already beautiful, but I really like this game. So I think I want this like deluxe, edition that puts it all together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and there were like, of course, they add in the extra bits, like, oh, you can take minis now instead of like, and you can add all these extra bits that were not available before. So that's always very cool.
My least favorite part of that is the Tokaido soundtrack, which comes on a CD that I have no way to play. I nothing in my house is a CD player anymore. I don't know what happened in the last like 10 years, but for some reason there's no CD players in anything. Like even like a PlayStation, you go it in, it's just like this isn't a Blu-ray. I don't know what to do with this.
What is it?
Wait, you can't even like PlayStation 5 can't play.
I think
CDs,
so.
music.
Yeah, I don't know if it plays. I might have to try again. I haven't.
It's possible. Yeah, I don't see why they would spend any work to make sure that thing plays music.
I want to bring back laser discs. That's what.
Now, have you, Ian, you owned everything and you're like, you would rebuy it all, sell the originals just to have a newer all-in-one deluxe or big box edition with the same contents? So you're not just buying a vessel, not just a box, but you're rebuying all the contents as well.
Any of the, like I said before, I have all of the North Sea trilogy big boxes. I have all of the West Kingdom trilogy big boxes. I now I'm going to have all of the South Tigris Big. Well, those are just in big boxes to begin with because their games keep getting bigger and heavier. But in the previous ones, I have gone out and I've bought the boxes for each of those. I accidentally bought the Raiders of the North Sea deluxe box 2 times because they offered 2 different versions, and I didn't realize I already had it.
Whoops.
Yeah.
I think our most favorite special edition recently has been the Castles of Burgundy. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good example of so the Castles of Burgundy. We had the original version, sold it to get the 10th anniversary, the anniversary edition.
Some anniversary, and it was just.
And that was just slightly improved. I was kind of disappointed, and then we sold that to get the special edition, which was amazing.
And that one finally really paid off, I think, because Castles of Burgundy, classic game, so fun. But, you're using little, in the original game, cardboard pieces to lay them out. And then you can accidentally, flick them off of your mat very, very easily. And you have,
that happens a lot with you?
I mean, I'm clumsy. So there's that aspect. But, this, special, what do they call it? Designer edition? What is this edition now?
Special edition.
Special edition. Yeah. We got those really chunky acrylic sort of tile things. Mm-hmm. They're so great to touch, the tactile factor of it, and then laying them all out, and it just looks fantastic. The minis we didn't really need.
Yeah, we sold those
building minis. Mm-hmm. But you can have at least a little standing castle whenever you've laid out a castle. Beautiful. Love that game. So good.
And for you clumsy people, the board is dual layered, and it gives you a little plastic overlay that the tiles fit into.
People wanted that.
That's no big deal. But yeah, that's a great set. That's a game we bought 3 times now. Just to get the latest version, because each one keeps getting better. But this last one's a big jump.
Yeah, I'm sure I want to pick it up at some point, but my plan was to wait until someone was offloading it to get the super deluxe edition. Then I'll just take the regular deluxe edition. I'm not picky. I don't own it yet. I just want a copy. I think I played it one time, but I really liked it.
Yeah, that was a classic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other final favorites of collector's editions come to mind?
We already said the Tokaido one. I really liked the Tokaido one. That was one of the first ones where I was like, yeah, I played this game enough. I really like this game. I want the super deluxeified edition, and I don't care they already have all the stuff. That's fine. I want to get my hands on the Takenoko big box. That one is hard to find. It is like a cube of bamboo, and it is
is
like
that
oversized.
The big size one too? The oversized one. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, doesn't it? I was, because when we were early on gaming together, we really liked Takenoko as well. But isn't that, I always got the sense that it's so big that it's not, if you play the game, it's not going to fit on most tables.
I don't know. I'd have to see.
He wants to find out.
Yeah, I want to find out. I have 2 tables. One of them will probably be big enough.
And I will give you one opportunity to talk about our Small World Designer Edition.
Yeah, that's sort of my pride and joy. We bought this years ago. I spent a few months convincing Christina that I needed to buy this.
Very expensive.
Yeah, and then I think we paid $400 for it or something like that. But I think it was people were selling it on eBay for over $2,000 later. But it's the game Small World, which is you can think of it as kind of like fantasy-based Risk, but much better, much better.
It's got the pay to skip TM mechanic in it for the factions.
I'm gonna say paying to pass. I think I'd like to add alliteration.
Yeah.
We'll see what sticks.
Pay to pass has a nice alliteration, but pay to, because it sounds like you're passing a turn, or you're skipping a piece. Yeah, okay. I kind of like skip better. Yeah, POS. Yeah.
No, that's PTS then.
Oh yeah, PTS. So Small World, this had it's map control, like you're putting out different races, and they all have, depending on how you set up the game, they have different powers and such. But the original game, it has a board, and it has all the cardboard pieces and cardboard tiles representing your units. Now all of that's been upgraded to chunky wood. You have actual little boxes. Like if you're Ian wanted the elves, we would give him a little box that had the full color art on the top. It has the power on the back of it. He opens it up. There's these wooden tiles nested in these little foam holders. It's like just like it's like it's just like such craftsmanship. The victory points are these really the biggest metal coins I've ever seen. They give you leather pouches to hide your points into. The maps are bigger. Just everything, and everything's all felt lined on the inside. All the pieces now are represented by miniature pieces. So from the mountains and the fortresses, the catapults, all that stuff is 3D miniatures. And it just comes in a big, it looks like a treasure chest. It's like this
wooden giant chest.
wooden chest, and it's a little plaque that's like numbered. The rule book is like this little hardbound little, it looks like a little tiny, it's like a PDF sorts. And it at the time, it contained all the expansions at that time that it came out, which was most of them. Like it came out pretty late in that game's kind of life cycle. So it didn't really miss much. It even has the team variant, which was a late expansion that came out. You could play that mode as well. So it's really awesome. And then like when we have people over at our place and they're like, "What is that?" Because there's like board games, and then there's this huge wooden case I'm like, "Oh, well, let me show you." I love showing it off, and then we'll open it up and take out everything. And it's just luxurious.
If you can't see the video, Shu's been looking at me the whole time talking about this, trying to reconvince me about this, I think. Well, you don't have to look at me. You already have it.
It's good. It's worth it, right, Christina?
Yeah.
It's a talking piece.
Yeah,
it definitely
exactly.
is. And then every time people ask me, has he actually played it enough to make it worth it? And I'm like, I mean, we have played it a bunch. So I guess it's there. It's got to be. I hope it's there.
Yeah.
Play for play. But thank you so much for joining us, Ian. We had so much fun talking with you. And Everbloom, of course, the Kickstarter is going to close, if this comes out on schedule, tomorrow, Friday, the 7th of June. So if you listen to this in time, go check it out if you haven't backed Everbloom already. Where can people follow you, Ian, and what you're doing?
I'm Chaos Moss or Chaos_Moss on places like Twitter, Blue Sky. If you find me there, I don't post often, but if you ever want to know things I'm working on, I will have shared or retweeted the tweets about things that I'm working on there. So
Still, we can find it that way, which is great. Awesome. Thanks for listening, all of our super friends, of course. And thanks to our fantastic editor, Mike Zipkin, for his help, as usual. Now you can stop listening and go play a game. Bye.
Bye.